And I think we're recording.
Great. Pagliyapsi means welcome in Inupiaq. Ukilak Gurunga. My name is Ukilak. My English name is Tricia Ivanoff. Unalatlik Milgurunga. I'm from Unoclete. I'm not going to do my full introduction since I'm still learning it, still learning my language. This summer I got to do an internship with this one Native-led organization called First Alaskans Institute, and one of our main speakers and seminar leaders, her name's Della Cheney. She is in her 70s, and she is learning how to speak her Tlingit language. And I was very impressed with her. She said, it's never too late to learn your language. And I'm 29 years old, so that was very encouraging for me because sometimes, I can feel like I'm behind, but I think that's what colonization and assimilation is meant to make you feel, is as if you're behind. And so to hear that from her was really encouraging, and it communicated to me, you're exactly where you should be. And, I'm on a journey. And we're all on a journey, and I recognize we're all in different places. So I graduated from North Park University with a BS in biology in 2013, and then I moved back to Alaska, and I was involved with Covenant Youth of Alaska, which there are some folks here. I was colleagues with Drew Williams, who is also here. So that was a lot of fun. Good to see you, Drew. And so I was there for a couple years. The WJEF Fry-Bread conference in Anchorage, I was on the design planning team, and that was a lot of fun. Super happy to be there. It was my first time at the WJEF Fry-Bread conference and fell in love with it. So I was really excited that Megan asked me to be a speaker. And now I'm at North Park Theological Seminary, and I've been here I'm in my 3rd year. And technically I should be graduating this year, but last year I decided to add an MBA. And so I have a couple more years left. So it's just a never-ending journey of school right now. So this is a nice break. And I was just saying to some of the people that were here before that it's really good to be around and be with Native people, because I have not seen a single Native person since I moved back here in August. And so it's really nice to be here with you all. And so that's just a little about me and who I am. I'm also a commercial fisherwoman. I fished with my dad and brothers for a couple of summers. Except for this summer, so that's been fun. But real quickly, I'm just gonna ask to go around the room and have you all introduce yourselves. Just give your name, where you're from, and I guess which tribe you are from, or people you are from. So I'm Inupiaq, and so our tribe is just the native village of Unoclete. So, but I'm both Inupiaq and Yupik. So. Yeah, I guess we could do popcorn style. You could call on somebody. I'll call on Teva since she's the first one on my screen.
Yate. My name is Teva Costello. I'm from Tinian, New Mexico, and I'm a part of the Navajo Nation. And so I'm Danae. And I'm really excited to be here in this seminar. And I'll choose Samantha or Sam.
Yate, she Samantha Stevens, she Sandra Kinnan Ishla, the Khan Bush's teens for Chini, Dasha Che, Ashin, Dasha Nellen, and say how who's on it, they Nasha. So I said, hello, my name is Samantha Stevens, and I introduced my clans through my maternal mother's side and my grandfathers from my paternal, my maternal sides. And I just said that I'm from Winter Rock, Arizona. I know there's a word to say that I live in Wasilla now, but can't come to my mind now. I moved here this summer. Married my husband, Eugene, just recently, in August. So, yeah, it's been a real joy being here in Alaska, though it's very different. And it's very good to be here at WJEF Frybread 2020 during a pandemic. So we were real excited for this, both of us, that it happened. So I'm really thankful for everybody who contributed, the producers and everybody who came to collaborate and brainstorm on how to gather Native students for this. I think is a real great opportunity to be a part of this. So yeah, yeah. And I choose Esther.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Hi, sorry, I just hopped in. We were just having dinner. Like, I'm from the West Coast here.
We're just introducing ourselves, and so just name where you're from and tribe or people you're from.
I'm Esther Liang Hong. I'm actually a Chinese immigrant. So I'm living in Vancouver, Canada. Yeah, and it is the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. So yeah, I'm a mom of 3 kids, so I might kind of run like in and out. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll just go ahead and ask Laurie to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Laurie Mcdonald, and I'm from Norwegian, Swedish, and German Mennonite history heritage. And we live on Kwakwaka'wakw territory, which is on the inside coast of Vancouver Island. I grew up on Saskatoon territory in the interior of BC. And my husband is Cree and Scottish from Manitoba.
All right, let's go. Eugene, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Eugene Stevens, or you can call me by my Yupik name, Jupuk. And I'm Yupik and Inupiat, just like Tricia from Mountain Village. And so, yeah, I'm from that area. It's western part of Alaska, so not too far from Tricia also.
Mercedes.
Hi, yeah, my name's Mercedes. I'm originally from Nebraska. Right now I'm finishing up my last year in college at North Dakota State University in Fargo. And yeah, I have like German and European heritage. Oh, and I'll call on Sierra.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Sierra Railbird. I'm from Billings, Montana. I'm currently a student at Montana State University, Bozeman, and I'm majoring in film and photography, and I just decided to major in business management. And I'm from the Crow tribe. I'm adopted Blackfeet, and I'm Grovant too, and that's me. I'll pick Isaiah.
Sorry. Aloha, I'm Isaiah from Hawaii. And yeah, I'm a volunteer with InterVarsity. This is my second WJEF, helping out with it. My ethnicities are Japanese, Hawaiian, English, Scottish, Irish, French, German, maybe Dutch, and Welsh. So I'll choose Edmondson.
Oh yeah, all the guys at the Amundsen Educational Center.
Yeah.
So there's 4 of us. Uli will go first.
My name is Uli Redford. I'm the residential coordinator here at the Amundsen Educational Center. I am half white, half Yupik, and I come from the native village of Tanumik.
I'm Freeman. I am half Yupik, quarter Aleut, and the rest is all mixed between Swedish, Norwegian, and Russian. I come from the native village of Napahayakmir, Hooper Bay, and that's where my mom's from, and my dad's from King Cove, near the Aleutian Islands. That's where my Aleut side comes from, and that's me.
I'm Wakian. I'm from Unacleat, and I'm a Nupiaq in Yupik. I went to WJEF in 2017 when it was Anchorage. It's pretty fun. So I invited these guys to, I asked the director of the Amundsen Educational Center to hook us up with WJEF on Zoom. So.
Awesome.
We got one more guy here.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. I'm Bob. I'm from Canada, Alberta. Somehow I ended up in Alaska.
Awesome. Drew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Drew Williams, and I live in Scammon Bay, Alaska, on the far west coast, south of Tricia's hometown, north of Freeman's hometown, and southwest of Eugene's hometown. So they're all my closest neighbors. And I am not native. I am mostly Welsh Celtic. Grew up in the Seattle area, and my wife and I moved to Scammon Bay in 2014 to work for Kayak, and God willing, we'll never leave. So.
Let's see, who hasn't gone yet? Connor. Yes.
Cool.
Chandler.
Yes. Yeah. No, it gets confused. Chandler's usually a last name. Connor's usually a first name, but for me, it's the opposite. So, well, hello everyone. I'm Chandler. I'm from Northern California, and my people are the Yurok and the Wintu, 2 different tribes. One's recognized, one unfortunately is not. They're both in the Northern California area. The land that I currently live on in Chico is of the Maidu, Machupta, and Concow peoples. I am mixed, white and native. I'm white size, mostly Western European, of Italian, Irish, Scottish, and Norwegian. And then, like I had said before, Yurok and Wintu. So I think Megan, I saw you raise your hand. You haven't gone, so.
Koyo Materu, Megan Krischke Ajetsa, Wendat Aja Atuta. Hello, I'm Megan Krischke. I am a member of the Wendat Nation, now based here in Oklahoma, originally at the New York-Canada border. I also have Cherokee, Irish, and Scottish heritage. And where I live, we moved to Tulsa this summer, and it's traditionally Kickapoo territory, but the Muskogee were moved into this area, and the Supreme Court recognized their sovereignty here this summer. So we had a big party at our house because we have a Muskogee roommate. I think that's all you were asking to know, right? tribe. Here's my daughter. She's saying hi. This is Flannery. I don't think Tim's gone.
Neither of the Tims have gone.
Oh, tough choices. I'll pick Tim Peterson this time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim, and I'm zooming in from Appleton, Wisconsin. My house is on the traditional lands of the Menominee. I am not, but I am French Canadian and Swedish in my heritage. And I've been on staff with InterVarsity for many years. And it's great to be here at my third WJEF. And I will pick my neighbor, Tim. He's about a mile away from me. So,
also in Appleton, Wisconsin, on Menominee lands. So yeah, and Yungas Halungse Oniote Aga. So I'm Oneida. We're transplants from New York. My tribe. I'm enrolled in that tribe, and yeah, I'm on the design team for WJEF too, and it was fun to have you on the team, Tricia. You can come back anytime. You know, we'll take you if you want to come back on the design team for the next one. So I'll pick. See, Jasper, have you gone?
No, I haven't yet. So hi, my name's Jasper. I'm from the Yakima Reservation in Washington State. I live in Florida now. I've been to 2 WJEFs before this, and yeah.
Cool. And I think Kiana or Kayana might be the last one.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kiana Holian. I currently am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm from the pueblos of Cochiti, Jemez, and the Navajo Nation, and this is my first conference.
Well, welcome, everybody. It's so great to just see the diversity represented just in this Zoom room. It's
Did we hear from Elena?
From
Or Elena?
Well, she introduced herself
Okay.
because I don't think her mic is working. She says she's an IV InterVarsity alum, class of 2019, graduated with marketing. She's Cherokee and Irish from Los Angeles. So, yeah, welcome, Elena. So before I get started, I just wanted to, I mentioned that I am going to school in Chicago, and I just want to acknowledge the land that I am on, which is, they're the traditional lands of the Council of the Three Fires. So the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi tribes. And so I just want to thank them for stewarding this land, for caring for it for generations and generations, for thousands of years. And so it's just so grateful for them. And also Chicago is home to one of the largest urban Native American communities in the United States. So super grateful for them, for their faithful stewardship of the land. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, perfect. All right, can you all see that? Let me see if I can. There we go. Can you all see that well? I think there's a way that you can like put the present, oops, I did that wrong. How do I go back? Little technical difficulties here. There we go. To view the presenter side by side with the screen. So I have to figure out how to do that. All right, so I really actually wanted to spend quite a bit of time with introductions, because our names and where we're from, they define a lot of who we are. They're connected to us just in all of the ways, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And so I wanted to spend a good amount of time on the introductions. Can I just hear one voice? Do you see the PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. And so the title of this is Sacred Bodies, Living Whole, Living Well. And so, of course, we're going to be talking about our bodies, but specifically our bodies as something that is sacred. And then we'll have a conversation later on. And I have very little content for us just because I believe a lot in community teaching. And so I'm not the expert. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. But a lot of this just comes from things that I've been thinking about lately, the ways that God has been speaking to me personally, and just a lot of it coming out of my lived experience too. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is this concept called Tov. And, I'm a seminary student, so of course I have to bring in some Hebrew for you all. And so, in Genesis, when God creates the world, he talks at the very end, he says, this was good. It is good. And so the word for good that's translated as good in English, the Hebrew word is tov. And so tov actually means something more than just being translated as good. It means that good, beautiful, but it means that it's working the way that it should be. And so when God created the world, he created it to work as the way that it should be. It's good, it's beautiful. And of course, when she created humans, God at the very end said, it is very good. It is very tov. It is very good, very beautiful, very working the way that it should be. And of course, if you are familiar with the Bible, the creation story, we know that the fall happened, right? And it doesn't mean that some people say that it made the world untov, which kind of is like the antithesis, which I don't necessarily believe that, because I still think there's goodness, but of course, that the world no longer is working the way that it should be. But it doesn't necessarily mean that when we're created, that we're not created, that God doesn't say that we're not good, but that God still says that we're good. And this is very evident when in the incarnation of Jesus Christ. It's very important that Jesus was incarnated, came in the flesh, because how can God, who is so good and so holy, come into the flesh if the flesh is something that isn't good? And so in the fall, that was something that wasn't taken away. And I think that at some point, and I can't pinpoint it exactly when, it probably came out when there was just the theology of like dualism of like, and probably actually coming out of Paul's teaching too, when he talks about the battle between the spirit and the flesh, right? So people could take, the flesh literally, meaning like this actual flesh, the body that we're created in. But if you translate that word in Greek, it actually means kind of like the fleshly desires, those desires that lead us into sin. So it's not necessarily this that isn't good. Like we shouldn't. So a lot of the theology is the body is bad, but the spirit is good. And so at some point there was that disconnection between like the spirit, the mind, and the body. And so, which is why I really feel like talking about our bodies as something that is sacred, something that is tov, is a really important idea. And so I wanted to share this with you all. In our culture, in our language, we have a word that I think is very similar to this word tov, and it's called ariga, which is what the ministry is named after. It's translated as good, but one of the one of the Inupiaq kind of speaker, well, she's learning Inupiaq. She said that it's a term that means more than just good, and the way that she described it was, it's like after, you know, you've had a long day of just like stress and everything, you go to relax, you draw a hot bath and you sink into it, and it's just like, you know, the world is made right again. There's this peace that is there. It's kind of like that idea of like, this is the way that it should be. This is good. So there's kind of a Inupiaq equivalent word to Tov. And so what we're talking about today is just kind of sacred bodies. So this is her Instagram username is Ink Stitcher. This is Sarah Whalen. She's an artist. And this is probably, when I thought of this seminar, this was like the picture that had come up for me. And of course, this isn't representative of like everybody, because, you know, it's a woman. But what I love about this, it's just who she is as she was created to be, as someone who is I mean, a lot of the tattoos here are very much like Inupiaq tattoos or Yupik. And so I brought this in here just to kind of like, to me, this is something, when I think of sacred, this is what I think about. Sacred bodies, this is what I think about. Someone who's just kind of, she's living into who she is as who God created her to be. And she's beautiful. And so just to kind of give you just a real quick definition of sacred, and there's a couple of different ones just so that I could bring up later in conversation. One of the definitions is considered worthy of spiritual respect or devotion, connected with God. And I love this definition because, you know, we as Native peoples, we view life as sacred. And a lot of things are sacred to us. The earth, water, and as you'll see later on, I'll show some more pictures, but that these are things that are, everything is created by God. Therefore, everything is sacred because all things that are created by God are connected with God. If that makes sense. And then the other thing, sacred describes something that is dedicated or set apart for the service or worship of God. And, you know, of course, people can be, well, you know, the sacraments, they're set apart, they're dedicated to God, but also I think people and bodies are also can be dedicated or set apart for the service or worship of God. And so one of the scripture passages to kind of point to that is from 1 Corinthians 16, 19 to 20, when Paul says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? And so this idea that as people, that our bodies are able to, in some mystery, in some way, that we're able to house God, the Spirit of God, that we're able to be temples. And you know, you typically when we see temples, the buildings, or not even just the buildings, but some of our sacred sites, like we recognize that as like, this is a place that connects us with God. But to view ourselves as something where God's Spirit is able to dwell, I think for me, that's really powerful, especially with the way that as Native people, our bodies have been treated. Mm-hmm. You know, when you look back at history, the way that, I mean, even back to our Constitution, right? Mark Charles brings this up a lot, just the language that is being used. It's not even counted as human. You know, merciless Indian savages is what the Constitution says. So not even being recognized as human. And then you go into all of the generational and historical trauma that we as a people have endured from genocide to then being taken from families and put in residential boarding schools, or being put up in school systems that aren't designed for our flourishing and our surviving. And so one of the things that I have learned about trauma is that it disconnects us from our body. I mean, you can hear rape victims talking about how when they had endured what they endured, it was like there was an out-of-body experience. There was a disconnection that had happened outside of the body. And so one of the greatest traumas that I think of is, of course, at the fall, when there is a disconnection between God and humanity with humanity. When it says that Adam named Eve, naming is a sign of power over. And I mean, in our culture, I remember reading stories of missionaries coming and they renamed people and gave them biblical names rather than learning their true name, who they were. And so that's a sign of power over. And then not only that, but the disconnection between humanity and creation. And something that I have always found so amazing with Native communities is that we've not lost that connection with our lands. You know, it's something that we defend, right? We talk about water is life, defending water, defending the sacred, protecting the Arctic. But one of the things that we really don't hear about much when we talk about defending the sacred is our bodies. And so, I mean, I think it's starting to come up. When I was researching this, I was starting to see more of like defend the sacred. And I wish I had a picture, but I don't think I included it in here. But it had a woman on there with, of course, you know, the symbol of MMIW, which is the hand, the red mark, the red hand over the mouth. And so I'm starting to see that more and more. I'll just jump down to this other picture as we're, you know, starting to bring and shed light on the disappearances of our Indigenous sisters. And so we're starting to, I think, come to that, but I don't think we have really thought much about defending the sacred in terms of our bodies and what we think about our bodies and how we treat our bodies. Because as I was talking about, trauma is something that disconnects us from our bodies. And so we have experienced some deep, deep trauma. And so it makes sense to me that there's that disconnection with our bodies and the way that we treat our bodies, the things that we're putting into our body. You know, for people who have been sexually abused, there's a couple of responses. One of them is that, you know, they just completely shut themselves off to their body and like, and so it's really hard for them to then experience intimacy or sexual intimacy with a partner because they're not connected to their body. Or the other hand of what, on the other hand, letting continue, it's kind of like a self-betrayal. For some people, they don't know, they know that they don't want to sleep with this person, but they do it anyways. Or they just, you know, sleep around too. There's no, seems to be no connection or love for their body, just, you know, allowing, and as I said before, maybe they don't want this to happen. They don't know how to speak up on their own behalf of their body. And so they just allow people to use or take advantage of them. And so I found this quote that has really stuck out to me, and it's from this site called Black Liturgies that I follow on Instagram. And it says, "In a world that doesn't honor your body, let caring for it be your holy defiance." And that's something that, at least for me this year, I've been really trying to be mindful of. Because, I have been that person that while I am still following Jesus, I haven't necessarily cared for my body well. And I realized that a lot of it is because of the trauma that I experienced in my life. And even, growing up, so when I was talking with Curtis, he used this word because I was trying to describe what I was feeling. It was like I would look at my skin and it would just feel kind of like dirty to me. Like I would try to wash it off and it was still dirty. And he had made the connection point that we were taught to hate our own skin. And so it's like a residue that is left over. And so for me, I have had to do a lot of healing in my life around that. And a lot of it had to do actually here when I was at North Park. And for me, a lot of that healing came, at chapel, but it was a moment where I was just sitting there and I just kind of felt a lot of the pain and the suffering that our people have gone through. And rather than blocking off my heart to it, I just kind of accepted it and I received it. Of course, I was bawling and in tears. My pastor came over. She was like, asked me what's wrong. And I told her, I was like, I feel like I'm feeling all of the pain and the suffering that our people have endured. And she was like, I think that's a journey that you're going to be on. It's not something that I can fix for you, which I really appreciate her saying that. And so that started for me the process of loving myself as a Native person. And it was kind of like I was coming into myself. And from then on, I've kind of just been on this healing journey. But then I realized that I still wouldn't care for my body well. And I was wondering, why that was. And I kept coming back to this idea of like trauma and what it does to you and your body. And so I actually really realized this when the pandemic hit, first in March, because for a lot of us, it was like a traumatic moment, right? And so from March to April, there were times when it just felt like I wasn't in my body. I wasn't connecting with my body, my mind. I was thinking and doing stuff, but it was kind of like I was on autopilot. And it wasn't until I bought a piano that I started, because I realized I needed to connect my mind with my body. And so playing the piano was something that I was doing. And it's not that I couldn't go out and be in creation, because we were encouraged to be inside. And so if I was at home, I would have been getting out and trying to connect more in creation. But because I was here in the city, I had to do something different. And so for me, that's kind of when this whole idea of like connecting, doing things to connect your mind to your body. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later when I ask the question, when we start discussing. But going back to MMIW, so one of the things that I think is really powerful in this movement is that here are people that are standing up for our women who have been objectified and abused basically since Europeans came to this country, like on a mass scale. And, you know, it's something that is, people are elevating this crisis in our community and saying that enough is enough, and realizing that, at least in this way, just the importance of people showing up and saying like, no, this can't happen. Our women are sacred, I think is something that is really powerful. And I think it's that part of that holy defiance too, is when we show up and we stand up and say that this is not okay. Because when you see bodies as something that is sacred, you can't help but want to see justice being done wherever there is injustice. And so when I look at this movement, I see this as a cry for justice. And it's because people are starting to see the sacredness of us, of our bodies. And so I wanted to bring us into this, this quote. And it says, "The old ones say the Native American women will lead the healing among the tribes. Inside them are the powers of love and strength given by the moon and the earth. When everyone else gives up, it is the women who sings the song of strength. She is the backbone of the people. So to our women, we say, sing your songs of strength, pray for your special powers, keep our people strong, be respectful, gentle, and modest." And what I wanted to say with this is, in our communities, we have been seeing women that have been standing up, that have been calling for injustice, that have been saying like, no, our bodies are sacred. And what I want to say to this, like, while yes, that has been the case, we need everybody. We need everybody to proclaim that, not just for our women, but for our men too. And so, while yes, this has been true, I think that it's so important to invite the men into this. I mean, I saw a march that happened in Nome, Alaska, because currently there's someone who has been missing for almost 2 months. It will be almost 2 months. Still haven't found her. And there was a march and a protest, and there was a picture of everybody that was there. And I think I saw maybe only 2 men. Mm. And so when we are to stand up for bodies, we need to do that all together. And I think when we come to see the sacredness of not only just our own bodies, but for other bodies, when we see injustice take place, this is something that moves us. When we begin to see, I mean, we already do that, right? When we say defend the sacred, when we show up for protecting water or protecting the Arctic, right? And so also we need to be doing that for ourselves. And it starts with us and seeing our own bodies as something that is sacred, something that is created by God. She knit us together in our mother's womb. And it's a place where the Holy Spirit dwells within us. And so I wanted to get into, with all that said, I wanted to get into a couple of discussion questions. And I'm going to see, I wish there was a way we could see everybody. I think I could just pull everybody down. But the first question that we could just talk about now, because I think, you know, I really believe in communal teaching, and I want to hear what you have to say, is how does viewing one's own body and others' bodies as sacred lead to living more whole and well lives? That's the first question.
Tricia, if you'd like, I could type those into the chat, and then you could close the share screen so we have all the faces. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll give you a moment to do that. You could look at both of the questions because they're kind of 2 parts. And then because I know there are some people that are introverts and you probably need just a little bit more time to kind of think. So while Megan's doing that, we could just chill for a little bit and reflect.
Tim's faster than I am. He got it.
Okay. And we have about, a couple minutes to discuss these, I believe.
The seminars technically end in 10 minutes, but there's no like hard stop.
Okay, because I just have a little exercise that we're going to do at the end, and then a prayer, and then we'll be good. We'll call it good. So did you type them in? I could stop share.
Tim beat me to it.
Okay, cool. I'll stop sharing. Great. Now I can see everybody's lovely faces. All right, first question. How does viewing one's own body and others' bodies as sacred lead to living more whole and well lives?
One of the things I thought of when you were talking, Tricia, was the sort of our bodies as productive machines. I mean, I see this in myself, right? I tend to kind of drive my body, to, and look at it as, well, I've got to take care of it only because I've got to get productive work done, or, it's a machine that I've got to keep running. And that's not a very healthy way to look at our bodies. And that's, I think that's one way where it could make our lives more.
Well, I know, just just looking at this question, thinking about this question, I mean, not so much our own bodies, but I mean, if you look at anyone's body and seeing it as sacred, kind of connecting what you're talking about earlier, like one real big issue, like Polynesian communities is like domestic violence, and so like, I mean, that shouldn't be an issue, right? If you view someone as sacred and their bodies as sacred, then you would not raise your hand in theory, right? Also, even I think connecting that with like a lot of sexual abuse in our community too, which I've never thankfully had to experience myself, but just more and more people I talk with in the Hawaiian community specifically, there's a lot, and that I think, especially kids, like just seeing their bodies as sacred, seeing their lives as just so sacred, which I think many Native cultures like see that children are such a sacred thing, and Jesus even mentions that like protecting them prevents that trauma, and that trauma, like stopping that trauma can just affect the whole community, just like how trauma in one person can affect the whole community. Just seeing some friends who have been traumatized and unfortunately like led to trauma, them inflicting trauma on others later. And so stopping that cycle and stopping that pattern could be stopped, through living and seeing each other's bodies sacred. Yeah.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Yeah, I enjoy what you had to say as a male in particular. And yeah, this is a really good topic because a sacred body is both male and female. And so I enjoyed that they started to include men also toward the end. Because, if one side is not healthy, then both male and female cannot be healthy. And growing up, it was really hard for me to talk about my own experiences when I was touched in an unwanted manner. And it's a kind of a shame kind of thing that I feel when I try to talk. So it's pretty hard, especially for a guy, because we only view females as the victims and not the male.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Eugene. Thank you for bringing that up. And I'm sorry you had to go through that experience.
As we were having a discussion, Tupac and I, before you asked the discussion questions, he didn't share it. I was hoping he would share it because I know there's the SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health organization, and I remember I showed him the video. It's on YouTube, and a lot of it is they use clips of men that are Alaska Native doing their dances and their prayers, and they have clips of Alaska Native men, and the emphasis of that is they want to reduce the suicide rate among men here in Alaska. And I really like that clip. It's kind of beautiful to see that they were trying to target, their target audience for that was Alaska Native men of different tribes. And so it's what Eugene we discussed is he discussed that when you're doing the seminar, he noticed that for as a man to see yourself, your body as sacred, and that for suicide is not a good way to think of yourself, you know, when things are hard and things get stressful. So having that like idea of self-harm is I guess like counterintuitive of thinking of your body as sacred. And so I just wanted to emphasize that because he didn't emphasize that, but I think it's really good because it's good to notice that it's on both sides. It's not just women that have this self, you know, insecurities, also the men that because they're man, they feel that they need to be leaders and they have a lot of pressure on them sometimes.
Thank you for sharing, Samantha. If you could find that clip, would you be willing to share that in the chat box?
Yeah, I can share it.
Thank you.
As you were talking too, I was thinking about how, like, in church circles, we often talk about future a lot. We talk about heaven. We talk about, you know, these things that will be, and we view them as this end goal, as this it's the X that marks the spot at the end of the treasure map, you know, and like, but I think when we do that, we inadvertently just discount lives. And like, you know, how many Sundays do we pray the Lord's Prayer, His kingdom come, His will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and then all we do is focus on the heaven bit. And like, yeah, I think it's just, and I think when we've seen and when we've been affected by suicides here in the village, the narrative is always, you know, oh, well, they're in heaven now. Like, isn't that great? Isn't it great they feel no more pain? Isn't it great? Isn't it like, and there's just this, like, I'm like, we could have done that now. And it's not a solution. Yeah. And just thinking about even just mental health is a physical health. You know, your brain is a physical thing. Mm-hmm. And we disconnect ourselves from it and we think, oh, this is a thing that just I'm dealing with, you know, and whether it's depression, anxiety, other severe mental health disorders and things, and it's all physical and it all matters and it all it deserves healing.
Yeah. And so I guess this can segue into our next question. So can this knowledge of just like, you know, sacred bodies, viewing bodies as sacred, do you think this could lead to healing and transformation in our communities?
I sort of saw the questions being like almost the same question, because I think when you like put your devotion into improving yourself and you see someone else who is also doing that kind of stuff, you can like have a better empathy sort of type of thing towards their life and know that they're trying and things like that. And like, you know, because we do all this stuff for funerals, we don't just throw them in a box and put them in the ground, you know, it's always like they have to go in a specific way because their body is still important. And yeah, I don't know. It's just I think when you know how you worked on yourself, you can really tell that you're not just gonna give someone a couple inspiring words and send them on their way. You know what it takes to get to that point, and you can actually help them better. And if everyone was like the holistic type of vibe, then it would be more understanding as a people, I think.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the phrase, you know how they say hurt people hurt other people. The other part to that is healed people heal people. Kind of seems like that's what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
I was totally thinking that. Yeah, all of this has made me think about, I don't know what they call, like, I don't know if it's just like consent culture, right? But there's like this growing idea in parenting about like respecting your child's body, right? Like if you're tickling them and they're like, no, stop, like you're supposed to stop, right? Which was not how I grew up, right? Like you just got tortured and tickled and, right? And, you know, give grandma a hug, right? Instead of like, do you want to give grandma a hug? And I mean, that's kind of a simple thing, but I just think like that's going to change the culture, right? Like my kids will parent differently than I parent, right? Like I don't always remember to do it that way, but they will have had a different experience and just that growing sense. And
yeah, I just got the message that the breakout rooms are going to close soon. So what I wanted to do before we close out is just something, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've started this practice where I just kind of sit in a comfortable position. And then I just kind of like hold my body, like kind of like you're giving yourself a hug, right? And so this is a part of loving your body. And when I first did this, I started crying because I apologized and asked for forgiveness from my body for the ways that I have betrayed it. And it was a pretty powerful moment for me. Or if you're kind of like past that, just like kind of speaking loving and tender words to your body. So it's just a way of connecting you to yourself and speaking kind words and really showing your body that you love it. And so if you feel more comfortable with your screen off while you do this and muted, but just kind of a time, a couple of minutes just to really like love your body and just give it a hug and speak loving and tender words to your body. So you go ahead. And so I'm going to end with this prayer that I found a few days ago from Black Liturgies on Instagram. So if you wanted to continue to hug yourself while I read this prayer, you can do that. I'll do that as I read it. So, God of flesh, we are grateful that you were an embodied Christ who refused to neglect the physical, who put flesh on the divine and reclined with your creation. As we enter the fourth day of waiting, of tension, of election anxieties, help us to not let information come at the expense of our own bodies. We have known what it is to have our bodily agency stolen from us. We have known what it is to have our bodies used more than loved. What the world has made enemy, let us befriend, that we would listen well to our bodies and let our care for them be a sacred defiance. Help us to eat, drink, rest, weep, stretch, move in freedom, knowing that today as ever, our bodies are worthy of honor and care. Help us to be alive in our wholeness. We will not forget ourselves. Amen. So thank you all for participating in that exercise with me. I hope it was good for you. I hope your bodies felt loved and honored. And, you know, as we love and honor our bodies, you know, we're better able to care and serve and love others. So, Koyana, thank you for coming to the seminar and participating with me.
Thank you so much, Tricia.
Thanks, Tricia.
Fun to have you back and to learn from you.
Thank you.